Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about Bitcoin investing strategies. These are the typical playbook strategies that you would use to buy Bitcoin, HODL, and then eventually live off of Bitcoin. And before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Ledin. They're one of my sponsors. Ledin is the best place to borrow against your Bitcoin using your Bitcoin as collateral and getting dollars, or lending out your Bitcoin and earning a yield. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and jump on in. So this is my newsletter that I publish on Thursdays, and then on Sundays it's published on YouTube. So, by the way, if you want to dial into this special feature that I'm creating, it's called Call-In. Call-In is an app. And so if you download this app and go ahead and subscribe to the Health Report, on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to go and do a live Q&A. So if you have questions about this and you want those answered, go download the app and check it out here. Okay, cool. So background, whether you've done your research, you've thought about investing in Bitcoin, or you've just started to invest, or you've been hodling, this is the quick hit playbook for you. This is like super short and simple of like best practices. And so I'm going to cover those tactics as we go through. All right, so accumulation, you've decided to buy Bitcoin. You want to start buying or stacking sats. Well, we aren't robots, so it's impossible to separate human emotion from an investment. And we typically become greedy when prices go up. I'm sure you've felt this before. As the price goes up, you get FOMO, you want to buy in. And when prices go down, you feel this pit of fear and panic. But there's ways that we can hack that human feeling via different strategies like this one I'm going to bring up, dollar cost averaging. So DCA, or dollar cost averaging, is the least emotional way to stack sats, as you purchased a fixed amount over a time range, for example, $1,000 over 5 months. So for example, every month you would buy $200 no matter where the price is at. So you kind of separate the human emotion away from the price feels low or the price feels high. No, you're dedicating yourself to buying $200 a month no matter where the price is. So this catches the dips, which reduces the fear, and it also catches some of the peaks, which reduces some of the greed. So you'll sort of be at one with the market, not emotionally connected with what happens right after your purchase, because oftentimes people buy, price immediately dips. In fact, that's the open joke is first time you buy Bitcoin, it's going to dip. it's inevitable. That's what it does to most people, or at least that's what it feels like. So this is a way to hack that emotion. Personally, I find the lump sum purchase the best way to go. So lump sum is like, cool, you've made up your mind about Bitcoin, you buy all you want in that moment. The way that I think about it is that if you've already made up your mind, there isn't much of a reason to stagger your purchase. You don't know any more or less than someone else if Bitcoin's going to rise or fall right after you make the purchase. So you've already made the mental commitment, go for it. Either strategy is okay, it's just depending on what sort of like stomach you have for risk. And personally, I like the lump sum purchase more, but a lot of people would probably like the dollar cost averaging because it smooths it out and makes it a lot less emotional. And then, the big component here when you're buying in, only invest what you're willing to lose. This is a age-old adage, and I think it's very applicable for Bitcoin given its volatility. The biggest mistake I see is people over-investing, something that they're like uncomfortable with, and then they panic sell on the dip because they're not mentally ready to take losses like that. And that's a pretty critical scenario because, the ultimate thing is that you want to do is hodl for a super long time. So if you're not hodling for a long time and instead you panic sell on the dip, you've totally lost out on all these gains. And cool, so you've accumulated some Bitcoin. Well, how do you hodl this long? The first thing you should do is, and when you're ready for it, is move your coins into cold storage. This is super beneficial for two reasons. It secures your Bitcoin in a way where it can't be seized by anyone else, and it reduces the temptation to day trade your Bitcoin. If you put it in a harder to access location, then it's not in your traditional brokerage account where you might be tempted to go trade it. So it sort of makes it a little bit of a proof of work to go access your coins. I think it's good hygiene, best practice, and also one of the good ways to reduce that feeling that you need to go trade right now. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Choice, one of my sponsors. As most of you know, when you hodl, you don't have to pay taxes. But what if I told you that you could hodl, and when you eventually sell your Bitcoin, you wouldn't have to pay any taxes then? Well, I didn't think that was possible until I found Choice IRA. Choice is the best retirement account to set up for Bitcoiners that lets you buy and hold Bitcoin in stocks without paying a dime to the government. And how does that work? Choice is an IRA. They have IRAs and Roth IRAs, which means it's a special type of retirement account where you don't pay taxes if you hodl until a certain age, along with some other stipulations. And the best part, you can self-custody your Bitcoin with Choice, which means that you don't have to trust Choice or anyone else with your Bitcoin or your private keys. It's the perfect retirement solution for Bitcoiners. The best time to start stacking sats was 11 years ago. The second best time is today. Search Stack Sats in the App Store or choiceapp.io/held. Link is included in the description below. Go check it out right now. Make peace with volatility. When hodling, you will encounter a crisis of faith. The price will dip to a point where you feel like you should sell. I think this GIF of Don Draper from Mad Men encapsulates this perfectly. You got to enter a state of like hodl nirvana where you can weather the storm. You just have to really have to separate that emotion from hodling the asset. You have to go, okay, why did I enter this investment? Well, I believe that Bitcoin will become the new world reserve currency. Okay, well, what price would that look like? $100,000 to $1 million of Bitcoin. Well, we haven't hit that yet, so I'm still going to hodl. Don't just have your emotion totally sway one way or the other why you're hodling Bitcoin. Understand the investment thesis, become one and at peace with the price volatility as Bitcoin moves towards its eventual objective of being a global reserve currency. So, let that volatility pass through you, not into you. And I think my favorite section here is not just in the accumulation and hodling, because those are somewhat basic, but living on Bitcoin. So, I've hodled Bitcoin for 10 years. What do? I don't want to sell my Bitcoin, and this is like a pretty big dilemma of like, what do I go do with my Bitcoin now? And there's a couple different ways that, look, you can go sell it if you'd like. That's totally fine if you want to. You'll just have to live with some of the guilt if the price goes goes to the moon again. And also know what you're trading that for. But ultimately what's great about Bitcoin is, one, it forces you to think about what's necessary in my life. Like, if I sell Bitcoin, what's that for? I haven't sold any Bitcoin, but I know a lot of people who have. And so you have to really critically examine, like, why am I buying this thing? But there's other ways that you can still hodl onto your Bitcoin while getting some access to some money. One is earning income from your Bitcoin. So this is a super nuanced conversation that requires much more characters than what was allowed in my, in what I was able to email people. So I have an in-depth newsletter called How to Earn Yield on Your Bitcoin, where I go through the various ways that you can earn yield. I'm going to link to the YouTube video in the description, so definitely check that out. You can also include a link to my Bitcoin yield spreadsheet. This Bitcoin yield spreadsheet is what it has available in here is, let's see, you've got the services. The services tab has a bunch of different services and how I've rated them, and then my personal portfolio in terms of like where my coins are right now as of this month. So definitely check that out. It's really, really useful for being able to go look at all the different yield strategies I've tried. There's a lot of nuance to it, so you figure out which one is suitable for you and decide if that risk is applicable. Also, you can borrow against your Bitcoin using your Bitcoin as collateral. So for example, I can post $1 million worth of Bitcoin and then borrow $500,000 from that. So that would be 50% of my loan. It's worth 50% of the value of my collateral. Now you're going to need to maintain a certain level of LTV, that loan to collateral rate. And that's decided by the lender, the company that lends you dollars, holding your Bitcoin as collateral. Now, if that rate falls below a certain level, you're going to get margin called. And what does that mean? That means they're going to go, hey, you need to either pay back the loan or give us more Bitcoin and post it as collateral to bring that level back up. So this is a really critical thing. This is where people lose their Bitcoin. If you borrow against your Bitcoin and you get margin called and you can't fulfill that, you're going to have your Bitcoin liquidated, which means you have a tax bill. And that's probably a really negative scenario. So, when you go margin or borrow against your Bitcoin, do this very carefully. I would only do it if it's super over collateralized, and, be mentally prepared if Bitcoin falls to a certain price that your Bitcoin will be sold. So if you've enjoyed this really kind of quick hit journey, let me know, give me a like, subscribe to this. Also, definitely check out Callin. So Callin is the app that I'm going to hop on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, where I'm going to do a Q&A on this topic. So go check it out. See y'all there. Cheers.